from dropping my girls off at my parents' house. My husband at the time, Chris, and I were planning a weekend getaway to Canada. He had some business to tend to, and I was tagging along. But when I walked into my house that evening, he met me at the door. My stomach sank. I knew something was wrong, and I knew what it was. He said, "Can I talk to you?" "Yes," I said. I took off my coat and sat down on our couch. He sat across the room from me in another chair opposite and began reading some notes he had written. It was a list of things he felt he was doing poorly in life. He was taking ownership. When he had finished reading, he came over and sat with me, and he looked at me and said, "I forgive you. Tell me what's going on." "I had an affair," I said. Our eyes locked for several seconds. "With Lindsay," I said. "Do you love her?" he said. "Yes," I replied. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. I could see him scrambling to make sense of this news. I felt removed from my body, overcome with a shame so deep it would stick with me for many months to come. A shame that filled my bones and saturated every cell in my body. Sitting on the couch 2 years ago with all of my secrets exposed, I retreated. Like the earth is ruled by the sun and the moon, I was ruled by fear and shame. My knee-jerk reaction was to pick up my baggage and pack it up and put it all away because I couldn't break up my family. Society had shuttled me through the normalized path of white picket fence living, and I went with the flow, not questioning, honoring, or acknowledging my part of it at all. It was a place I had grown really comfortable in, and I wanted to keep playing it safe. Desperate to keep my family together, I immediately went into damage control. Therapy started 2 days later, first as a couple because I was determined to save my marriage, determined to preserve the life I had sacredly envisioned for my girls. I stayed on this unyielding, torturous path for weeks to come until one day I had a thought that reframed everything. If this were one of my girls, how would I want them to live? What would I want them to do? This new thought caused a radical shift within me, and suddenly the fear of not being my most authentic self became bigger than the fear of losing the financial comfort and security I had grown to be comfortable in. The simple question of, what kind of life do I want to model for my girls, created a radical shift in perspective, leaving me no choice but to get down and dirty and real with myself. Playing it safe was no longer the goal. Being me was the goal. Broken, raw, and perfect, just as I was. This was the best gift I could offer my girls. So I left my marriage. My marriage was never a sham. I have a deep love for that man, and I never saw any of this coming when I committed to a shared future with him. We share custody of our girls 50-50, and he continues to be the greatest gift in their lives, aside from me. Our daughters are without a doubt the most redeeming part of our story, and I cannot imagine a world without them. I have no regrets whatsoever. The last 2 years of my life have been filled with every emotion possible. Joy, grief, fear, pain, disgust, guilt, excitement, contempt, relief, anger, you name it, I have felt it. Friends became enemies, enemies became friends. I went back to school, and I moved out of my home. I naturally and wisely decided this was the best time to start a business, so I did that too. Embracing a new life requires you to rewire your hard drive. It takes a tremendous amount of energy. For me, learning how to sit in uncomfortable emotions has been my biggest undertaking to date. Some of the things I'm learning to do differently include not defending my feelings, especially to myself, that all of my feelings are okay, even the painful ones, that my feelings have value and intelligence, but they will pass. I must not be reactionary. That I can trust my intuition. When my gut tells me something, follow that lead and ask questions. And finally, I can be happy and grateful, but still have really hard days. The easy part of my story has been coming out as a lesbian. The hard part has been putting my life back together. It's been 2 years since I left my marriage, and 1 year this month since I started my own business. I joined Toastmasters because I was born to speak. Educating and inspiring others lights me up, and I know I have a story to tell. So I want to do it, and I want to do it well. The fact that being a better speaker and communicator allows me the opportunity to get to know myself better is just icing on the cake. Ernest Hemingway said, "You can't get away from yourself by moving from one place to the other." But boy, did I try. I've spent my whole life running away from myself, but I've stopped running. And every day, I feel a little more at home. Thank you.